ex-wife was mad at him because he dated one of her friends. It is Supernanny Saturday, and today we are watching The Young Family. So let's grab our beverages and dive in.
Well, as you can see, I'm on a ferry about to take a look at a submission tape for a family who claim they need my help. So why don't we take a look at this?
We've been having to move around a lot, and that means relocating my family quite often. We're really only in like one city for about 3 months at a time. We dread the idea of having to bring out the boxes. As soon as we start bringing out the boxes, that's when like mayhem will really start to set in.
Mom, I don't want to eat this.
Okay, we have one main issue and then we have many issues that are spawning off of it. The main issue is that the family moves so often. We're not talking about once every few years. We're talking about multiple times a year, and this provides an unstable environment for children. Because of that unstable environment, the issues that are spawning off are letting the kids play with machetes, because she doesn't want to tell them no, and it's stress relief. We're going to have to go into that. And then secondly, the sleeping issue. It doesn't sound like mom and dad are both on board with having Crew, the youngest, sleep in bed. Let's see how observation day goes.
We just got an offer on this house, and so they want to close in 2 weeks.
So you're going to be moving again in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
All right, okay, so you're the moving, traveling family?
Yeah, we are. I think it's mostly been hard on Nico. Nico's at his 4th kindergarten.
She's very torn. She knows that it's ideal to have her family settled in one place, but she supports her husband for her family's sake in making sure that they can move around and support Ricky's work.
Moving around this often is not an ideal situation, and here's why. Children struggle with transitions. They can't even finish playing Play-Doh at a table, clean up, and then get ready for lunch half the time. So now you're throwing them in a new school, new classroom, new teacher, new classmates, all new procedures, because teachers spend probably over a week going over, what do I do when I need a pencil? In some classrooms, oh, you can get up and sharpen your pencil. In other classrooms, oh, no, that's disruptive. If you want another pencil, you have to go to this bin where there are already pencils sharpened. It's a lot for a child to take in before they can even get to the academics, which is a whole nother can of worms, because you might start with different skills and then they're jumping in and they don't have the foundational knowledge. It's a lot. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but there needs to be a lot in place for that stability.
Is that a machete he's playing with?
Yeah.
Huh? What's he doing with one of them?
And I was like, oh great, here we go. So I knew I was in for a barbecue right there.
I think you're bloody crazy. Seriously?
Well, it's pretty dull. I dulled it down. I mean, he still could get hurt, yeah, but it's...
Then why are you not taking it off him?
It's his favorite toy. He likes playing with it.
I know, but it's not a toy, is it? It's a tool.
It is a tool.
Whether the machete is blunt or not, it's dangerous. You don't play with a tool. Full stop. That, to me, is really dangerous. Can I ask you to take that off him, please?
Yeah.
Observing on my first day, I don't normally intervene with situations, but watching these boys running around with a machete is absolutely insane, and it does need to stop.
Hey, Nico.
Ah, the famous machete. It is here, but don't worry, it is dull. Now, Joe normally doesn't get involved on observation day, but I don't think she could bear to watch anymore because it's too dangerous. It makes me think of when I would go to the playground with my kids when they were younger. And for the most part, everybody stays in their own lane. You take care of your kids, I take care of my kids. I try not to get involved. If your kid is playing in a way that's a little too rough, I just tell my kids like, hey, just come play over here somewhere else. And I try to keep the peace. But every once in a while, I would come across a parent who wasn't really watching their kid, and their kid was doing something that was so dangerous. It wasn't just like a little bit of hurt. They might get a concussion. And that is when I struggled, because I couldn't just close my eyes and not look because of the kid's safety. And I feel like that is what Joe is feeling right now. She's going, I've seen enough with the machetes. Let's put those away.
Hey, Nico. Kai, you guys gotta come back up here a sec. We're gonna put the machetes up high.
I don't want these to go up high.
Nico didn't like the fact that his dad wanted him to not play with the machetes anymore.
Stay away.
No, that's not funny.
It took some convincing for Nico to give him up. But then instead of standing by his decision, Dad felt that he had to negotiate with Nico.
How about when we need to do the firewood, you can get it out and you can chop the firewood.
Why?
because that's an appropriate thing to use it for.
Of course this didn't go well. He's been able to use this machete whenever he wanted, and now it's just being taken away. Now Dad does, once he's upset, begin to explain to him, you'll be able to use it later, we can chop some firewood. And Joe calls it negotiating with him. It is negotiating if you start saying those things after they're upset. If you say it before they're upset, it's not negotiating. So what Dad could have done is he could have went outside and said, hey, bud, come on over here. Yeah, come here. Yeah, bring that with you. All right, can I have that, please? All right, let's hold it up. Can you explain to Joe Frost what this is? Oh, yeah, no, this is a machete. Tell her what you like to do with it. I like to do this and that. Yes, it's so much fun. I feel so powerful. I can chop things down, right? Let him talk about it a little bit. And then you go, recently, I learned that this probably isn't the safest thing for me to let you play with. Now, we can use it as a tool. We can't use it as a toy. Would you like to use the machete later to chop up the firewood? See how all of that happened before the child got upset? So it's not negotiating with them because it's coming from you. When a child gets upset and then we change our behavior, then it becomes negotiating and bribing.
He had a breakdown and ran off into his little forest safe place.
Hey, I just want to talk. Come here.
Mum actually went over and went and joined Nico and started to pacify him by hugging him and stroking his hair. And I kind of saw there and then that actually when Dad makes a decision, Mum sabotages it.
He's been able to play with this for so long, and then for it to be just, taken away. A lot of changes with that kid, a lot of changes.
I'm actually with Mom on this one. I see nothing wrong with her being there for her child when he is having a hard time. She did not give him the machete back and say, oh, well, too bad with what Dad said. I'm going to do it my way because I feel bad. She just held him and she was there for him. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, as our children grow older, we want to teach them how to handle their emotions in an appropriate way. So we can have that conversation and say, there is nothing wrong with you feeling sad. What we do with that sadness, we have control over because emotions are like clouds. They're passing by. Now you're feeling sad about not being able to use this machete as a toy. Would you like to go inside and we can write down all the ideas of how to use the machete as a tool and make a plan to use the machete with Dad to cut firewood today and then be able to do blah, blah, blah tomorrow? How can we take your emotions and comfort ourselves through it? Maybe if it just means writing down how you feel and then ripping it up and throwing it in the trash, that would be a more appropriate way to deal with that sadness than running into the forest. So you're not telling your child you can't feel sad. You're telling them how to handle their sadness, because there are things that we do in our culture that we can do and we can't do. If I'm upset at work, I can't lay down on the floor and throw a tantrum. People would look at me like, what is wrong with Kristen? Is she having a mental breakdown? But I can feel angry. But what I do with that anger is we look at our culture and we see what's appropriate.
Well, I knew that these parents had a problem getting their youngest one, Crew, off to sleep in his own room. When I walked into his room, I realised there's no way he could sleep in here because it was empty.
I love Crewy. Crewy loves Mama.
The pair of them were underneath a blankie. Crew was facing his mum whilst she was singing this lullaby. This ritual, I think, seems to be more for the benefit of Mum than for Crew. And I think it's because she feels guilty that they move around so much.
Is this going to be one of those episodes where I disagree with Joe a few times? Because typically we are on the same page, but I am not feeling the judgment that is coming from Joe about how Mom is handling nap time. Mom is comforting him. She has the blanket. She's singing a lullaby. And Joe says that she thinks it's more for her than it is for Crew. And I completely disagree. A child and a parent have, especially a primary caregiver, have such an amazing bond. You are their favorite everything, their favorite face to see, their favorite toy. They would give up the entire world to just have you when they are that little. When you walk in from being outside, if you have to go somewhere and you come back, you're a famous person. Oh my gosh, Mom is here. You are their everything. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have children and they're not suddenly adults. There's a transition that happens. Now, there's a little caveat to that because this doesn't work for Dad. So that opens up the conversation of, well, what should we do? And that's difficult when you have a primary caregiver. He's not even there during the day, during nap time. They have to travel all the time and he's gone for work a lot of the time. How much of a say does he really have in this if she's the one doing it? Because she doesn't seem to have a problem with it. If she had a problem with it, totally different conversation. But she's the one doing it. Now, I do agree with Joe in the sense of if you want your child to take a nap in their room, then you need to set up the environment for success. There is nothing in his room that makes it look comfortable. So, of course, he's not going to want to be in there. What do you think?
Then Nico and Kai started to run wild in the living room next door to where Crew was meant to be sleeping.
It wasn't very helpful for me.
Oh, okay.
I knew that Mum wasn't going to calm down this unruly behaviour from the older boys with this gentle, soothing voice.
I thought it was so great how the boys were playing together, other than when that pony little thing went into the younger kid's head and his head looked like it was going to pop off. Then I went, okay. But for the most part, they're getting along. They're not fighting. Well, they're fighting, but play fighting. They're not fighting in a malicious way. So that says something about their ability to play together. That was great, just maybe not during nap time. So instead of even doing the whole knock it off and be stern, which is what Joe is suggesting, I would just suggest to Mom that during nap time, that is the time when the boys have to play separately in their rooms or in separate rooms, because kids that are this age, they just don't have the self-control. It's like when you look at a young child and you go, oh, I have a headache. Like, Mommy has a headache. Can we please just, can we keep it down? And they're like, yes, Mommy, of course, yes. Even if they really want to, they want to. And then 3 minutes later, or maybe even a minute and a half later, they're screaming and you're like, I just said I have a headache. They can't control it. So just don't put them in a situation where they will be unsuccessful.
Are we both in agreement that we don't want the little one in the bed anymore?
Gosh, yeah, look at these bags. Yes, please.
What is it that you think's going on when he cries?
He's scared. He doesn't know where he is. Things are crazy. We move into a new apartment. Boxes are everywhere. I just don't want him to feel anxiety or,
He's 21 months though. I think she looks into it too much. Like, I think she's overanalyzing
I don't think so. I know he knows when, feels the stress of me even. Like when I'm stressed out,
yeah, exactly. He probably feels your stress.
There's something to be said about the primary caregiver truly understanding the child, because they're the ones that are there the most. But there's also something to be said about when you are that close, you have blind spots. There are things that you just don't see because you're too close. I hear both Mom and Dad in this situation. Mom is saying, when he wakes up and he cries, he's scared. He doesn't know where he is. And that is why he's calling out. And that's why I go get him, because I just know he needs me and I know he's scared. And then Dad says, well, maybe it's because he feels that you feel that. And then Mom goes, yeah, maybe it is that. There's a lot of benefits to being able to have this conversation with both the primary caregiver and the other caregiver, because you both can contribute in different ways, as long as they're done in a respectful way. And it seems like it is. They're having this great conversation. Now, we do find out that Mom wants Crew out of the bed. So we will be seeing the stay in bed technique, I'm assuming, which is what Joe typically does on Supernanny. Let's get to teaching day.
On them, we'll write the rules and then pin them up.
Cute.
They have the tendency of hitting each other a lot, or hitting Jenny, so I would like that to be a rule.
No name calling.
Yeah, name calling.
Do you think it's effective, like we have no?
The reason why I've had you write no is because your kids have never heard no.
No biting, no punching in the privates, no hitting in the face.
I like how the rules are on colorful plates, because when they're displayed on the wall, you can point to a specific rule by saying its color. The red one says, the yellow one says. When Dad does mention, why are so many of them saying no, Joe says, well, the kids never got to hear no, so it's good for them to hear it. Yes, it's important that we say no. I have a preference of writing rules with what we want our kids to do, not what we want them not to do, because they hear what we say. So when we say no running, what do you hear? Running. No hitting, what do you hear? Hitting. Instead, say walking feet, gentle hands. And the last thing was the older child, he was in his interview and he explains how no hitting in the privates and no hitting on the head. I think it's great to be as specific as possible because the kids are able to hit during play fighting. Instead of just writing no hitting, maybe say play hitting on the legs only, right? Like I know for my family, I have a 7-year-old son. He's so into Nerf guns right now. Anybody else's kid into Nerf guns right now? So we say shoot the legs. We shoot the legs. I would say you could shoot the belly, but you know how 7-year-olds aim, okay? They're trying to get your belly, but it shoots into your head. And Nerf gun bullets are quite painful. And then we also have a rule of distance because they will come right up to your face. Shoot it so close. So I can say the word, specificity matters.
Gotcha.
Crew totally reacted to Joe's idea of putting all this stuff in there. He looked around, saw his own toys and saw the familiar things and started playing with them. Had no quarrels about jumping in his own bed and, hopping in there. And even though he was hopping around and playing in the place where he should be sleeping, it was still like he was comfortable with it.
Crew, you're jumping on your bed. It's where you go to sleep now. You're going to be going to sleep in your bed.
Step number 1 of getting Crew to sleep in his own bed is getting him comfortable in his room. Because they move so often, there's nothing in his room. So Joe has the family bring some toys. They play in his room. He's jumping around in his bed. And Joe says, later on, you're going to be sleeping in there.
We need to teach him that when he comes out of his bed, he has to go straight back into it, okay? You're going to sit like so. The crib is here. You're going to be at the corner of the crib facing towards the door.
Everything inside me just hurts when I hear him cry. It was pretty awful because it was so hard and I just wanted to turn around and scoop him up.
This hurts my mommy heart. I also sleep trained both of my children at different times for different reasons. There is no judgment here on Mommy Breakdown, whether you decide to sleep train or you decide not to. For my first, I did it at 18 months and it was very similar to this because he's 21 months. So a pretty similar reaction of the standing in the crib. And then with my second child, I did it much sooner because I needed it. I was going through postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, and it was directly related to sleep deprivation. So it was necessary. And I just think that each family is individual. Now, when it comes to sleep training, there is a range of things you can do. There are things that you can do that are more gentle. And when we say more gentle, it means that it's going to be less growing pains for the child, but it's going to take much longer to get there. So you'll see sleep training practices of, you stay with the child and you pat their back or their bottom, and then you slowly stop patting them, and then you keep moving away. And that will be a little more gentle on the child, but it's also going to take much longer as opposed to a sleep training method like Cry It Out, which I think is one that I personally would not do, which is when you just completely leave the child all night. I did more of, I believe it's called the Ferber method, when you go and check in certain intervals. I felt better about that personally. Honestly, all of it feels kind of yucky. No one likes to see their child sleep. Or cry. We all like to see our child sleep. So I feel for mom. I really do. There are plenty of people who will argue and say, the reason why it hurts as much is because it's not natural and you shouldn't do that and you shouldn't abandon your kid. But there are plenty of things that our children have to deal with as they get older. When my child complains that they don't want to go to school, I can't just be like, okay, we'll just stay home today. When they don't want to get dressed or they don't want to take a bath or they don't there are going to be things that our kids are going to cry for that we still have to do. And, so all the support in the world to all of the parents who have young children. The only thing I would say before we continue this is whatever you choose to do, stick with it. So if you're not ready to sleep train yet, don't do it, because this will be really confusing. If mom decides in the middle of this to turn around and pick him up, I don't think she will. Let's see. Come on, mom. You can do it. We're cheering you on.
It's always hard as a parent to hear your kid cry. And for me, sitting out in the hall and knowing that my wife's in there, knowing how much she loves her kids, that was honestly the hardest part for me.
We are 30 minutes into this, and I must say, for me, I don't know if I'm thinking too deeply into this, but this is what I was thinking of. Imagine if you just had a health scare, like a health emergency, and you passed out in front of your kid, and then you're just laying there. That's kind of what this feels like to me, where you're in the room, but you're not responding. Am I thinking too deeply into this? I prefer the method, and it's personal preference, I prefer the method of you go in at 3 minutes, if I'm remembering correctly, and you say, good night, I love you, and then you shut the door, and then you reset the timer, and you do it a little bit longer, then you do 5 minutes, and then you go in, and you go, good night, I love you, and you're very calm and confident, and you just say, good night, I love you, and then you shut the door. And when I did it that third time, which is a 7-minute span, my kid went to bed. So I guess it's not totally a different amount of time, because it's the 3 minutes plus the 5 minutes plus the 7 minutes. It's still a little bit less, but I just felt more comfortable with that one, because I kept on reassuring the child, like, I'm here, we're good, it's time to go to bed. What are your thoughts? Maybe I'm just thinking too much into it, but something about hearing a kid cry and the help me, I'm dying. You're like, no, mom. Oh, mom.
And she had done it. She held out. We did see Crew go off to sleep, and Mum came out with victory smile on her face.
Good job, babe.
Thanks.
A total of 33 minutes. This is hard to watch. Are you struggling to watch this like me? I feel like I'm there. I feel like I want to help. It's going to happen again. But Joe is staying all night to help through this technique, so we'll be able to watch what happens in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night when I had to get up with him, that was awful. It's like I'm already tired, and here's my baby crying, and I remember sitting on the floor just feeling like crushed almost. She came in and whispered in my ear and told me, hold strong.
And sure enough, he went back to sleep.
Is it going to happen again? And what's nice is Joe Frost is here, and she's supporting her, which is lovely. I adore that about Supernanny, how connected she gets with her families, and she's there to support. And is it going to happen again? Are we done for the night?
I have their name. We have
Oh, who's
that? A picture of the family.
She had pictures of their grandparents and a blanket for each of the boys.
Boys ate it up. Like, that was their favorite thing like they had ever gone. It was like Christmas for them.
It's me.
Immediately, they started playing moving, where they rolled out their blankets and they set up their frames and put their little things out.
Now it's time to go to bed.
I am a huge fan of all of this, the way that each kid has their duffel bag with their items, so that when they get to their new house, because they move So often they can take everything out and set it up, and the kids even begin to play moving. We love rituals. We love consistency and traditions. Think of all of the things that we do as humans throughout our lives. Like there's a certain way that we go to school, and then we get married, and there are funerals, and during the holidays we do this, and we bake cookies, and we even have comfort foods, certain foods that we eat that make us feel safe and make us feel homey, because maybe you think of your grandma, or you think of your grandpa, or certain items that just, it's nostalgia. Have you seen the new Inside Out movie? My favorite character was Nostalgia, and how she just kept on popping out. We like it. We like consistency. It makes us feel good. What's something, let's share this in the comments. What's something that you do during the holidays that makes you feel safe and warm and cozy? Joe Frost was gone for a few days. Mom does night 1 bedtime. It takes crew 5 minutes to fall asleep. Night 2, Dad is in charge. It's 62 minutes. Joe explains that the time discrepancy is because Dad wasn't consistent. He puts crew to bed and then he leaves the room. Then he sits in the room. Then he starts scooching himself outside of the room. So then night 3, crew was all over the place because of that lack of consistency. We see that all the time as parents. When we go on vacation and we come back, everything, like, you need a few days to reset. Even things like being up late for Halloween, or being up late for 4th of July, and then you try to get back to it when they're home for the summer, and then you go back to school schedule. It's all gonna throw things off. So that's like the theme of today's episode, is consistency. The more consistent we are, the easier it is on our young children.
Go sit at the table. You need to go sit at the table. Not effective.
Right. All you need to do when you're speaking to him is, when he starts to move, lower that tone of voice and ask him to do what you want him to do. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Turn around, turn your face around, and look at me when I'm talking to you.
She definitely put in perspective, like, hey, the ability to learn control over your voice and the words that you're saying to your kid is important to be able to help them understand.
What I'd like to add to this is that there is power in pausing. It is tempting as a caregiver when we are disciplining to just go, 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 and go fast. But when we pause, we give our children an ability to catch up. Think of them, they're like on delay. There's a little bit of lagging when it comes to what their bodies are doing and their brain catching up to what their bodies are doing. So when you start doing the warning, slow down and pause. And we say it like this: excuse me, look at me. This is a warning. And that is why I speak so slowly, because it's jumbled up for their brains. So not only do we want to tell them what to do, like Joe is saying with look at me, but slow down and pause, because very often they will look at us. If we speak slowly, even when I'm speaking slowly right now, you might be like, what is Kristen doing? Hold on, she's saying something important. Because when people say things that are important, they slow down.
I'm the fire chief.
So you have the red one, okay? And Kai and crew have the yellow ones. You will have 4 minutes to collect your favorite things that you need to take to your next home and bring downstairs back into this box.
Making unpleasant activities into a game is absolute magic for young children. The way that she gave them hats and she's got her whistle and her little timer, they are eating it up. Whenever we can take something that's unpleasant like moving and turn it into a fun activity, it's 2 thumbs up because we all have to do it. As we get older, we're going to do things that we don't want to do, and we can decide to be miserable while we're doing it, or we can make it fun.
Joe coming in here was amazing. We have a plan, we're gonna execute it, and I feel really empowered.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye, Jojo.
Bye, Groovy.
With another move coming up, like literally right around the corner, I feel like we're pretty well empowered. Like we'll be able to implement all those things that Joe taught us.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see where the Young family is now. This episode aired on December 3rd, 2010, so just shy of 14 years ago. It was a part of season 7, not to be confused with the other Young family from season 2 and the Young family from the UK. Mom was 29 and dad was 27 at time of airing. As of 2024, mom is 43, dad is 42, Nico is 21, Makai is 19, and crew is 16. Events post episode. What? Ricky, which is dad, was arrested in June of 2021 for robbery and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. What? I found an article. It says bank robber who appeared on TV show sentenced. Richard T. Young pleaded guilty in Island County Superior Court June 4th and got 2 years in prison. And this article was published June 9th of 2021, 11 years after he was on Supernanny with his family. Richard T. Young, who is now a Tennessee resident, pleaded guilty to second-degree robbery. Under the terms of the plea bargain, the prosecution and defense recommended a sentence of 2 years, which is an exceptional sentence beyond the standard sentencing range. Judge Cliff agreed and imposed the sentence and also ordered him to pay $2,716 in restitution to Chase Bank. He robbed a bank? Attorney Blake Harris explains that Young had suffered from a gambling addiction. There we go. Not that it's an excuse, but I'm like, there's got to be something. And used the money from the robbery to pay debt. He said Young has since moved to Tennessee, had a good job in sales, and hasn't committed any other crimes. Young apologized for his actions and said he has turned his life around. 11 years ago, when I committed this crime, I was not the person that I am today. I am still ashamed of that person. But if he committed the crime 11 years ago, how is he being sentenced now? Young described the impact of his crippling addiction. I lost everything that mattered to me. I lost my family, I lost my job, I lost my friends, but really I lost who I was. We do know that he appeared on Supernanny. We just watched it, which was weeks after the bank robbery. So when we were watching him, he had just robbed a bank weeks prior. That's wild. The premise of the show, we already know what the premise of the show is. I'm skipping that paragraph. I'll link this in the description if you want to read the whole thing. Court documents indicate that Young entered the bank wearing a white dust mask and implied to tell the teller that he had a firearm, although one was not seen. An elastic band from the mask was later found outside the bank, and a lab determined that it had the DNA from 2 different people. A backpack with clothes thought to have belonged to the robber was later found. Investigators at the time, however, were unable to identify any suspects, and the case was closed. So that's how he ended up on the show, and he didn't go to jail because the case was closed. They weren't able to identify any suspects. Years later, Young's ex-wife contacted the office and informed the detectives that Young confessed to the crime during a therapy session. I have chills. What? During a renewed investigation, detectives determined that Young's appearance at the time of the TV show closely resembled images of the bank robber from the surveillance video, and Young's cell phone records also showed that he was in the vicinity of the bank a few hours after the robbery, and then he was in the vicinity of the area where the clothes were found soon after that. Young originally denied committing the robbery and said his ex-wife was mad at him because he dated one of her friends. That because I'm thinking in my head, I know you're probably thinking this too. Why would she do that? If he is in a therapy session and he shares that he did this awful thing, and I get it, it's against the law. I'm not saying it should be excused and he should face the consequences, but man, wild to then turn in your husband. But no, they weren't married anymore. At this point, they were exes and he dated one of her friends, so she was pissed. This is, I've never read a Supernanny story like this other than way back when with CPS and some of the other families. But this is a wild one. Holy, I feel bad for the kids. The statute of limitation for the charge is 3 years, but that excludes periods when a defendant is not living within the state. So because he didn't live in the state, the report by a detective with the sheriff's office indicates that Young lived in Washington less than 3 years following the robbery. Dude, this is bananas. Now that we're up to date on all of that, let's go ahead and see if we have any links on what the kids look like today. We are hit with a whole bunch of football photos right away, having fun with friends. I will click on one to see if we have more up close photos. Here's Nico with his team. This is a very intense photo. Looks like it's even raining outside, unless this is all editing. Here's another one on a jet ski. I see Kai as the TikTok name here. Having fun with a pumpkin on his head. Oh, around and up and over. And my guess is those those are the 3 boys. And then how ironic that they hit each other in their privates as a joke on the video after all of that we just saw in the episode. Here's Kai's Instagram. Him and a lovely lady in a lot of these photos. Prom, maybe? They're dressed up. Also football, but that's the female. More of them dressed up together. Wait a second. Looks like a little wedding-ish, doesn't it? I'm getting wedding vibes. Are these like engagement photos? No, maybe just we love each other photos. Very sweet. Also football, so Kai and Nico into football. This was not linked on the wiki, but I did type in crew Young and it's also football, and I'm assuming that's it looks like they all got into football. That's their thing. I found mom. This has to be her because we know what the boys look like. So here's mom and the 3 kids and a dog. Dad's not in the picture. We already know it's their exes. Let me scooch it over so you can see all of them. This is what Jen looks like now. She looks almost the same. Oh, let me read what she wrote. If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. She quoted Mother Teresa. It's a privilege to be able to call Nicholas, Jacob, Mackay, Max, and crew James my boys. What an honor it has been to be the one to show them the magic of the world around us, to teach them that there is love and beauty everywhere we look, to find adventure in everything we do, to teach them to leave better people leave people better than we found them. These 3 are my greatest gifts. Oh, is that not the sweetest? I couldn't find anything on Ricky, the father, but I do wish all of them well. Mom appears to be growing into her single mom life, and she's close with the boys. The boys look like they are all close with each other, which is lovely to see. I hope that dad is taking care of himself in his gambling addiction so that he could be the best father possible to his 3 sons, even though he is no longer with his wife and they are exes, and apparently he dated her friend. So I don't know about all of that, but I do wish all of them well. If you have an addiction of any sort, or you know someone who has an addiction, there are resources available. There is help. You don't have to do it alone. I will link some in the description below, and I will see you next time. Bye.